this really as a matter of principle, as a matter, of asserting the rights of marginalized people. So really, it's not for her, as she has rightly said. And one of the compelling moments in the case yesterday was the concluding remarks of a legal counsel after making very, persuasive, cogent legal arguments. They concluded on a personal note by reading from their biography, where the counsel says, "I hope this case will be, a victory for all the young people and all the marginalized people." So for her, really, it's not for a personal victory. It will take months for the court to return with a judgment, and she might never run again. But really, for her, she was in court looking very dignified, very happy that this has come to the apex court of human rights in Europe.
Commissioner, thank you so much for making time to speak to us today. Tsepo Madlingbozi is the South African Human Rights Commissioner responsible for anti-racism, equality, justice and education, was in court as Caster Semenya's case against Switzerland was being heard in the Grand Chamber. As he explained, it is going to take months before the court does return a judgment there. But also, as he points out, this is more than just about Caster Semenya. Of course, it is about whether or not she can compete, but the significance of this case does transcend guaranteeing Semenya her right to compete.
When running a business, you need to secure your cash. You can count on Fidelity Cash Solutions. Bringing the heat in the air and on the ground, you can rely on Fidelity Cash Solutions to keep your money safe. From securing cash in transit to cash acceptance devices and more, trust Fidelity Cash Solutions, securing SA's cash economy. Visit fidelity-services.com and contact us for a free risk assessment.
New looks good, feels great, like that new lounger, the firm seat, the relaxation, so much space. Can you feel that? Now feel all of that for longer with a new car from Victor's McCarthy. The firm seat, the fresh leather, so much space, and so ready for adventure. You've been working so hard, let those hours pay off. Visit mccarthy.co.za or one of our dealerships nationwide. Victor's McCarthy, we deliver always.
No. The radio didn't just break. Just an ad break by Pineapple. Pineapple.co.za. Underwritten by Omar Insure Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSB.
7 hours and kids off. It's a Thursday, and on Thursdays in the Midday Report, we speak to the author of a local non-fiction book. And our book this week is called Saving South Africa, Lessons from the Ngeni Municipality Success Story. It is by the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, who are now authors and co-authors, Chris Papas and Sadile Nikati, who join me in studio today. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you very much for your time. You are not just politicians now, you are authors. How did it come to be, Mr. Mayor, that you landed up writing a book, and why now? Many people who are asked about memoirs say that they always feel that the story is not necessarily ripe to be told. Do you feel that the story is ripe?
So thanks very much for having us. It's great to be in Joburg. But yeah, so the idea was that we're going into quite a serious election time. There's fundamental changes that could or might happen in our country, and there's a somber mood, especially national elections. And people are looking for good news stories. People are looking for something hopeful. That we don't always have to have bad news and things can be fixed. So we said, well, why don't we write about our journey so far? It's a easy read. It's light-hearted. It's practical steps that we've taken, so that people can learn a little bit more about the insights into, as someone takes over government, or as people take over government, what can be expected. So yeah, I'm sure there's more to add in the next 2.5 years. There's lessons that we still have to learn. Things need to be learned. But for now, there's a journey of how we've fought to change government and what we've done to try and fix things.
Deputy Mayor, you both tell the story in this book, your own personal journeys. So Chris speaks about the fact that he grew up, and I know much is often made about the fact that you are fluent in isiZulu, and you as the kind of character of who you are, Chris. Sandile, maybe a story that's not perhaps as well told, that is told in the book, is about how you were raised by two women, one black, one white, Elsie and Joan. And it's fascinating to hear those backstories of both of you and how you came to work together.
Good afternoon, guys. That's quite correct. So Joan was my biological grand, boss, because my biological grand was a housekeeper. And so the story goes that at some point, and I think I was one at the time, my grand came to work apparently on her back. She said, well, I can't continue to work anymore. I have to quit and look after my grandson. This is when Joan said, no, none of it have to quit. Let's see what we can do together. And 29 years later, they are still seeing what they can do together. So that's really who raised me. I grew up in Benoni Township, which is just outside of Howard. And then I also spent a lot of time on Joan's farm in Underberg. So my primary schooling years were mainly in Underberg, and then I moved when I was about 12 to Howard, and that's when I went to Howard Prep and on to Howard High.
Chris, this is not a DA book, disclaimer, for anybody who thinks that it is necessarily electioneering. Of course, we're in election season. We can't ignore that fact and the timing of the book. But to make it clear that this is not a DA book, it's a book about good governance and hope and about what is needed to save South Africa one municipality at a time. What was your intention here?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there are elements of politics in there. We can't hide the fact that we come from a political party, and that's how we got elected. But the book itself is not a bashing session. It's not a pro-DA book. It's just a practical guide. It's step by step. It's the experience that we've had in government. And the reason why we did that is because we wanted to be able to share the story with other people who might be interested. Those who are either looking at a career in governance and saying, well, sure, what the speeches and the bashing that I see on TV, that's not necessarily what I want. There's a whole different world to making government work. Or those civil servants who are stuck in middle management and never think they're going to make it further than that because they're not, some sort of cadre or some sort of backhandedness that has to take place. So it's all these stories that hope to inspire, whether you're the member of the public, aspiring politicians, or civil servants, or you're just someone who wants to know how things work in a municipality, which many of us don't actually understand how the potholes get fixed and the street lights work and those sorts of things.
Sandile, you speak up in the book about what you found when you came into office. The trust deficit was there, the landscape of what you came into when you came into power. And that's probably the most newsworthy part of the book from a naming and shaming perspective, but also in terms of what you actually found there, the entrenched processes. There's this great story about how a substandard contractor was being paid 13,000 Rand for changing a toilet mechanism, that kind of stuff that you had to fix when you came into power.
Yeah, sure, and that's we often ask, what was the first thing that you did when you were elected? The first thing that we did was we spent the entire week in court, because before you were even in office, the previous municipal manager who had been suspended insisted on presiding over the first council meeting, which would have us elected as mayor, deputy mayors, and so on and so forth. And so we had to go to court to force the correct municipal manager, the acting municipal manager at the time, to preside over the meeting, which he at that time refused to do so. But going on to that particular story, that individual, and I narrate about this later on in the book, met up with me at Puma Garage in Howard, and he said to me, please can you relay this message to Papas, that if he gives me a hard time, that more is coming. And he on more than one occasion stormed into council chambers and demanded to see the mayor. He said, listen, I hear that you're the person that's stopping me from getting all this work. What's your issue? So he's an interesting character. And even the way he went about his work, he used to go on the side of the street and get boys that were looking for work that weren't really plumbers, and he'd get them to do the work. So there was that issue, but also within the staff. I mean, I think we also talk about a particular official. Whilst we were having whilst we were having our caucus meeting in the council chambers, who was spying in on us. And we got wind of this, and I think we said a few words to her, and she never did it again.
Outlined in the book.
Outlined in the book. Look, obviously, it's quite a turbulent environment coming in, taking over, and having to deal with those processes. It is, KwaZulu-Natal, political assassinations are alarmingly high. You do speak in the book about the shooting of Councillor Nhalayenza and Novo. The dangers of being a politician in KZN, and Mayor, you speak about your own lax approach to security, going to buy hot chips without your bodyguards. I joked when you sat down that you didn't bring your own bottle of water today, because that's what politicians often do. But it must be a pretty ominous environment to be in.
It is, and it takes a lot of getting used to, specifically if you haven't grown up in that environment, or it's not the environment that you're used to. So, I mean, I come from a farming background, and I've got to where I am through hard work, studying, and committing myself to what I do. So I don't owe political favors or contractors, or sort of the other stories that you find. But it takes getting used to having people with you. Planning your life that much ahead, because you've got people that have got to be around you, going to an event, and having to know that crime intelligence has checked the event because it's politically charged or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, I'm also a normal human being. If American presidents have been assassinated and they have the best security in the world, so if someone really wants to hurt you, they're going to hurt you. Not that it makes it any more or less right.
You towards the end of the book, speak about your template for governance, and what are some of the lessons from your experience, perhaps how it could be replicated in other municipalities as well. Sandile, you have a master's, your thesis was on the Western Cape government, and going from being an opposition party to a party in power. What are some of the key lessons that you've learned, that you outline in the book, without obviously going into all of the detail? That's why we want people to buy the book.
I think there's a trust deficit, but also there's an ethical deficit. So people didn't believe in the municipality because we weren't a transparent municipality, not us, the previous administration. We weren't transparent. The way we did things was not fair, and it wasn't open. So I think that's one of the things that have had people believe in the municipality and the institution, that we are doing the right thing. And we often talk about one example is where, for part-time jobs, we get everyone to put their CVs into a box, and we get a random that is standing in the traffic line to come and renew their desk or whatever, and we ask that person to be the person that pulls out those names out of the box with security guards around. So those are the type of things that we're trying to bring into the municipality, so people can believe that there's no shenanigans going on, and we try as much as possible to be transparent. I think that's really what's missing in local government.
I think it's important to point out that you can get everything right. And as we said, this isn't a DA campaigning platform. It is a book about reflecting on what you learned along the way. Mayor, what are some of the things that you think you highlight in the book that perhaps you could have done better, and that maybe is a learning for you?
So I think the first thing is around opposition management. So you come into, having been in opposition for a very long time, you come into government and it's almost, you want to have a reversal of roles in terms of the way that your opposition treated you, for whatever reason it might be. But in fact, what we've learned along the way, and could have done it better in the beginning, is how to bring your opposition on board as part of building the municipality. Whether they or not they buy into that, that's a bit, that's up to them. But that was one of the things I think we could have done better right in the beginning, is to say how do we find a place for the opposition where it doesn't become a winner takes all situation.
So I do have to ask you, as the co-authors of this book, you are the co-mayor and deputy mayor of Benoni, but you've written a book together, and I've co-authored many a book. It's not easy, guys. You fortunately had some help along the way. How did you divvy it up, and what was the dynamic? Was it the same as the way that you run a municipality?
So it was very interesting, actually. We had a conversation, really. We sat down and recorded a conversation. Starting from the beginning, what were our experiences, and we added to each other's story. Oh, did you remember this took place? Oh yes, yeah. And you remember this official that didn't do this, and I remember that time that you were threatened. Oh, I didn't even know about that. You didn't bring that to my attention. Now I know. So there was a conversation, really, and we turned that conversation into what you see in front of you. But we have a good relationship.